are you deep diving that much with your own customers? We were talking about a cracker. So look at positioning from Patty. So we take everything that Mike just said, right? The market, the research, the story. Watch the bonus videos that Ron Lynch has done to really reinforce that story, and watch what Patty has talked about for positioning. Now, everything that I've mentioned from those three individuals, this is why I have them in part of the training. I can't tell you seriously, like right now, I can't tell you enough. Seriously, right now, I feel like a little kid at Christmas. The reason being is because so many people overall, and you said this in your presentation, but I want to frame this. So many people think they have to go after clicks and click-through rate, right? A high clicks and a high click-through rate. Ron Lynch, Patty Dominguez, and Mike Dillard, we weren't talking about click-through rates. They talk about really good storytelling and positioning. So in my position, when I very first saw these slides, and I saw these slides that basically said, hey, look, you don't have to have tons of clicks for people to remember you. Well, if you write copy like Mike, no. If you write commercials, or if you write copy with the level of detail that Mike does in research, you actually don't need a lot of clicks. You just need the overall awareness of people reading. Same thing with Ron Lynch. So if we start to move away from this, hey, I need as many clicks to my landing page as possible, I need as many clicks as possible, and we really focus on the creative, that's why I created the slide that said, hey, let's lean into the automation. If we get better at the creative, all this works, because as you know, 90% of people don't necessarily click on ads. The people that have a higher clicky are more expensive. So if we're writing good copy, good content with a good offer, people can be watching our videos and then optimizing, and oh my goodness, we don't need a ton of clicks. Facebook automation will figure out the entire process, So here is, let's jump into, okay. I want to take a look because I'm curious if people here, yeah, I am curious of, let me stop screen here for seconds. Actually, let me ask you this. Whoops. Sorry, I'm hitting too many buttons at once, getting a little too click happy. I am curious at this point in time, for the people that we do have watching, any questions, comments, concerns about revelations before we move over to the next part? The next part, I want to talk about the three buckets and the mindset of buying, media buying. And then we'll get into some buttons, some point by click, and I want to show you some watch me work sessions that we have rolled out recently. I'm recording some new stuff from today. But I would like to know, just from this part here for just a minute, sometimes this gives people just a moment to take a quick bio break, if that's something that they need to do. But I wanted to just stay here for just a moment, just to see if anybody has any questions or any insights before we move over kind of the next subject matter. So let me see some comments. There we go. Jace, I hope I'm saying that right. Great point. So yes, the thing is with the belt, there's a lot of stuff to go through. It's not highly complicated. It's just reinforced. So when you hear me go through some stuff in the weeks and they sound like they're a little repetitive, remember, one of the things that you can do is just jump into the over the shoulder videos. They're in unit number, well, first of all, the over the shoulder watch me work sessions. They are inside of the membership site. They're also inside of the group. It's unit number 18. I have another watch me work session to record today, but essentially what it is this. As you go over the first couple of sessions with the belt program, essentially it's starting to think on how to what to do with ads differently. Now, essentially what I'm showing people how to do is not necessarily the button clicks in the 10 weeks. It's how to think about the entire process and how you start to implement. So I do get into button clicks where it's like, here's how you set up the golden ad report. Here's how I launch CBO ads. But for example, if you're going through the first couple of weeks and you have some questions of like, well, how would you apply this? You can go into the unit number 18 or the watch me work session, and you can see how I set up my hot 28, step by step, all the button clicks and everything else. That's also in the premium group as well. Then the next thing is you can see how I set up the ads. You can see how I set up my middle of funnel ads, how I set up the top of funnel ads. You see how I set up the entire process, and then how I start to move to the top. So the first 4 weeks, there's a lot of concept behind it. And it's kind of one of those things like, I don't know, playing certain games. Like once you just kind of get it, you're like, oh, I got it. So some people just pick it up right away really quick. Sounds like you're doing that, which is great. So you can dive into some of the learning units right there. Some people just kind of need that extra repetition. It's kind of interesting because we have some people who are like, hey, look, I don't have any media buying experience and this is great. Some other people are like, hey, I have some media buying experience and I don't know if I have enough details yet. We're like, well, there's a watch your work session for you as well too. So we are here to help fulfill anything that we possibly can. Happy to help. Roadmap. So roadmap. So the roadmap's going to be inside underneath the training videos.
It's the first slide. It's the first slide of every workbook in every section.
There we go. Okay, great. So here's the next thing. It's so great. So I'm good with the clicks. Not a problem. I think since I have so much content and so many ideas of lack of clarity of what to take next, totally cool. Totally cool. So this is actually something that we've built out with clients. So clients in the agency would come to us and they'd be like, hey, look, I got a box worth of content. Man, I love your strategy, but I got a box worth of content. You go through the content. And I'm like, Reminds me of my aunt who has like 20 cats and no one's been in her house for 20 years. Not an exaggeration. I'm scared to figure out if that's a hoarder house or what it is, right? So essentially what we want to end up doing is instead of like, hey, where do I go next? I mean, a hoarder house really comes down to just not being able to make some decisions. What we like to do is keep it really easy. So remember, no one's seen all of your content like you have. And a lot of people forget that lens, meaning you could have stuff from a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Heck, I can use the same 15 videos over and over and over with different copy. They all have different meanings. So what happens is we tell clients in the golden ad process, for example. Actually, let me see right here. This will help. When you dive into the golden ad process, this should help, but let me dive into it just a little bit more. So you've seen this presented before if you've gone through the process, and you see how we target top funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel, how we set that whole process up. Well, one of the things that we tell people when you're creating this digital newspaper that pretty much just falls in right here is basically this. Here's the tip for all the content. So pick a theme. Like this goes into what Mike and Ron said. This is why they've made a lot of money. It all comes down to the planning. So you sit down and you plan it out a little bit, and you can do this if you have tons of content. It makes it super simple. What you do is you sit down and you pick out a theme for the month and a subtopic for the week. So just to make this up, we're about ready to head into February. So let's just say February that we dedicate on lead generation, multiple different ways to get to generate leads with online media ads, right? So maybe that's my theme for the month. All right, how are we going to generate leads? Well, and then what I'm going to do for each week is I'm going to have a separate subtopic. And each subtopic may be, how do I get leads for e-commerce? How do I get leads for coaches? How do I get leads for whatever, what my subtopic is? Well, if I have a topic for the month, a subtopic for the week, when it comes time to be Monday morning at 9 a.m. and I'm posting, it's like, well, what am I going to post about? Well, what's my theme for the month, my subtopic for the week? What would someone want to see at 8 o'clock in the morning? Well, if we're talking about how to generate leads, for example, I can go back through any of the webinars that I've ever